Okay, so welcome back, and we were just stopping at this stage in the last lecture, and we was nicely getting into the reconstruction part. So let's understand that in more details now. Okay, so let's move on. So the image reconstruction from observed sinograms. So how to go about it? So we only have sinograms to play with, the p of s comma phi to play with. We need to create that image back, f of xy. Let's say if f of xy is the image, so let me put in terms of equations. So this is the space that we want to reconstruct through the projections or through the recordings on the sensors or detectors we do have is p of s comma phi, and then we need to do the back projection, okay, bp, to reconstruct that f of x y back. So that is our objective. So let's actually think how to go about it. Okay, so initially way back in 1960s and all, a person named Godfrey Hounsfield, okay, so very popular name in this field. So what he did is he did direct inversion. Okay, so you have, let's say, n unknowns. If you have n observations, n equations, or n detectors, you can actually do direct inversion. Okay, direct inversion and find it out. So this is one of the Nobel Prize winning approach. So 1979 Nobel Prize in Physiology, Godfrey Newbold Hounsfield. In fact, the CT, whatever values is measured in terms of Hounsfield units, in remembrance of this great person. So what he did is actually he inverted 28,000 equations. So that's an enormous task. Okay, so there may be some dependence between observations, right? Because you can see that if there is an overlap in the angle, there is huge dependence. So in order to avoid that huge dependence, to get more equations so that you can solve it using some least square sort of techniques, typically you go for n squared measurements. So if you have n square measurements, you invert that is a task. So nobody does this. Okay, so this is the Hounsfield's CT unit that he was actually using, just for your information. Nothing much to look into it, but I thought I'll show you this. And then what he did actually is something like this. So let's say the original values in the, so now we are talking about pixel level. Okay, so we can go to that signal processing route, and let's say mu1, mu2, mu3, mu4 are the original values in this image, which we are not getting. What we get is these observations. You have mu1 plus mu2 through this projection, you have mu3 plus mu4 through this projection, and similarly mu2 plus mu4 through this projection, and mu1 plus mu3 this projection. So you have no information about these values. From these values, these four observations, you need to get back this mu1, mu2, mu3, mu4 values, and that's what image reconstruction is all about, or that's what back projection is all about. So what Hounsfield did is he had these four equations, and then he took it as a, b, c, d as the location, and then we know that a plus b value he has, c plus d value he has, a plus c value he has, and b plus d value he has, and then he solved it using inversion and got those a, b, c, d values, right? You can also solve equations, right, and then get it. But when number of equations are more, solving by hand is not the way. You do something like eigenvalue decomposition, or some sort of QR decomposition, some sort of linear algebraic way of solving that equation, right? So that's what Hounsfield also did. But then of course that's not a very good approach, because you need so many observations, and then inverting that is not an easy task. So there should be a different way to go about it. So that is where one of the very popular technique, which was again proposed in 1970s, it's known as algebraic iterative technique. Okay, so this is also very interesting and very easy, sort of pleasing to talk about. So let's discuss what is it. Okay, so let's say I have some unknown values which I need to fill in. These are the pixel values I need to find out, the image values I need to find out. Only thing I have is this p of s phi, right? So these are both coming from p of s comma 0 degree, right? And these are actually coming from p of s comma 90 degrees, and this may be p of s comma 45 degrees. Okay, so I'm just giving some illustrations so that you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so 3, 7, 5, 6, 4, these are the values I only have, only information that I have. So first step in this algebraic iterative technique is that we start with this 0 degree case, and we go ahead and fill these pixels with repetitive 3 and 7. So something sorry, not like that. I think I missing up with some other technique, sorry for that. So first step is actually you take the average. So we have 7 plus 3 10 plus 5 15 plus 6 21 plus 4 25, and then these are the 5 observations, and you have 10 observations if you consider the entire 360 degrees. So 25 by 10, which is 2.5. I'll put it in all the places. Okay, so that's the first step. And then what we do is we add them in the horizontal direction. That will be 2.5 plus 2.5 will be 5. 2.5 plus 2.5 will be 5. Okay, so that's the first step. Now if you observe this value to the expected value here, and similarly this value to the expected value here, you see that there is a difference of plus 2, right? These values are higher by 2 and these values are lower by 2, right? Because the expected value was 7 when I sum these two, but I got only 5, and here the expected value was 3 but I got 5. So this is actually higher by 2 and this is actually lower by 2. So what we do is actually there are two pixels to play with. So this 2 will be divided by 2 and this also will be divided by 2, and then we'll correspondingly add or subtract from the location to make it 3 and 7. So that's to make it simple. So if you want to make this as 5, what we need to do is we need to let me just remove this. To make this value 5 as 3, what we need to do is we need to deduct 2 units from these two positions. I mean 2 units from the 2 pixels. So that means 1 unit from each of the pixel. And similarly, to make this value 7, we need to add 1 each to each of these pixels. So that's what we do as the next step. So 1 is deducted from these two values, so it becomes 1.5 1.5, and 1 is added to these values, that will become 3.5 3.5. So why 1 is added here? Because totally 7 is what I expected, but we got only 5. So if I add 2 to this, I'll get to 7. But then I have 2 pixels to play with, so I'll add 2 by 2, which is 1 to each of them. So that's how we got this. Now next step what we do is we did the horizontal. Now what about vertical? So after this you add the vertical sum. So 1.5 plus 3.5 is 5. 1.5 plus 3.5 is again 5. But now we will compare with these two. Okay, so just compare with these two values and I repeat the same step. So 5 is what we get, but 6 is what we expect. So that means the value over here is lower compared to the expected value by 1, and then 2 pixels are there. So what we need to do is we need to add basically 0.5 here and 0.5 here, correct? And then the value here is 5 but the expected value is 4. That means we need to subtract 1 from total, so that means minus 0.5 minus 0.5 here, and that's what we get. So 1.5, oh sorry, the other way, I think I lost it. Oh sorry, I made a fundamental mistake. So this has to be compared with this and this has to be compared with this, I think. Yeah, that is parallax error. Okay, so basically 6 and 5 is higher by 1, so you need to add 0.5 in both these places and subtract 0.5 from both these places, so you get 1 2 3 4. And now if you see, it's perfectly balanced. So you got it, right? So you finally got what is expected there. So many iterative algorithms actually exist. So if you search, you will find something like image estimation, pseudo projection, etc. Okay, but the conversion speed versus data acquisition, that means the data is getting acquired and then you need to reconstruct this to image, that speed is terribly low and is challenging in this sort of, because it's an iterative technique, right? So we need to actually have a better, not pixel level technique, but more of a maybe a line level technique which will be much faster, so that we can have the reconstruction at a rapid rate compared to the acquisition rate. Okay, so this is not very popular, but still with the advent of deep learning and all, people are trying to accelerate such techniques because there is some power in these techniques. Okay, so let's move on to more realistic, and that's what typically known as the back projection algorithm. A very very interesting algorithm, and as the name suggests, it is like back projection. So projection means it's like you are going from forward projection was something like you compress the 2D space into a 1D detector line, for example, right? Now you need to convert that 1D space back to the 2D space, and that's why we call it as projection, back projection. Okay, so exactly what it means is we do have only P of S5, and we know that S is nothing but the detector dimension, and phi is the angle of observation, right? Now project that back to an appropriate line, because we know that p of s phi, just remember that expression. Let me actually put that expression which I told you to remember. Okay, so this is natural logarithm of id by I0, and this is nothing but that line integral of s comma phi over that line, if you remember, xy ds, right? So you only consider the lines in this particular attenuation image along that angle phi, so that forms your line integral. So this p of s phi is nothing but that line integral, right? That's what you have. So back projection says you take that particular thing and assume that throughout that line that is the value. So that's the back projection means. I have a figure, so it makes it very clear to you. Okay, so but the knowledge of where the values came from was lost in the projection step, right? Because we don't know at each and every location along that distance where is that intensity coming from. That is gone, we don't know that. So the best is this. Okay, so let me actually, now we are going to do reverse, not this way. So let me take one value here. So this is one value, right? P of s comma phi, this is one value for a particular angle, of course. So given a particular angle phi, so this is that angle, right? So this is the observation that I have. Now what I'm going to do is, this is back propagated, so the same value is kept throughout, of course, in the image. Okay, so this is the image plane, I don't need to do here, but in the image, if you see, the same value is projected. And similarly, this particular intensity, that particular intensity forms throughout this region. And let's say I take this particular intensity, that is the intensity which is actually sort of projected out. Okay, so that is the thing. You might have noticed that we are talking about shadow imaging, so sort of inverting the values that you're going to project back, right? So that's what we are showing over here. So the idea is, back projection means you take a p of s comma phi value, and that value is projected throughout along that angle, along a line which is kept at that angle in the original image. Now what you do is, you repeat it for the next angles, you sum each of these images, just like the synthetic aperture algorithm or the plane wave algorithm that we are talking about. You reconstruct individual images, and then when we sum them up together, all of them together, we are closer to the original image. So that's the thing. So you repeat this for one phi, you repeat for the next phi, next phi, next phi, you reconstruct all those images together, you add them up, you get most probably the original image back. So that is the concept. So I'll show you with a simple example again. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 is the original pixel values, and the projection values are something like this. Projection, of course, is 1 plus 2, which is 3. This projection is 4 plus 3, which is 7. This projection is 2, this is like 45 degrees, is 2. And this projection is 1 plus 4 is 5. And then this projection is 3. This, of course, is 4 plus 2 is 6. And 3 plus 1 is 4. And similarly the others. Okay, so we only have these projection values, and from that we need to reconstruct this back. So what is that this back projection algorithm saying? So we will start with 0. Okay, so this is the initial condition, we will start with all zeros. The first projection, I will go from the 0 degree, so it is 3, so I will extend 3 in all the places, and similarly 7, I extend that 7 in all the pixels. So this is the thing. That's what I was pictorially showing in the previous slide also. The 3 is completely repeated along that direction, 7 is along that direction is repeated. So that line, you are putting that p of s comma phi. For a given phi, that p of s value is repeated throughout the pixels. That's the meaning of it. So that's horizontal is added. Now I will go to the diagonal part, which is actually this dimension. So what we need to do then is that this particular line, that means this particular pixel, I will add the corresponding p of s comma phi value, which is 2. So that means this this particular thing will get added with 2. So let me actually show you here so that this becomes clear. And then this dimension, the value is 5, so I need to add 5 here and 5 here. And then this dimension, it was 3, so I'll add 3 here. So let's say 3 plus 2 is 5, 3 plus 5 is 8, 7 plus 5 is 12, and 7 plus 3 is 10. So that's done. Okay, let me actually ignore it. And now go for the other dimension, which is vertical dimension. So you need to add 6 to these 2 pixels and 4 to these 2 pixels. So that means this guy will be added with 6, right, and this guy will be added with 4. So that is what sorry, I think I skipped one step. Okay, so this will be added with 6, this will be added with 4, because that's how you get it to this, which is actually adding vertical also. Now adding diagonal, so again this guy, right, so this pixel will be added with 4, these 2 pixels will be added with 5, and this pixel will be added with 1. So basically this guy will be added with 1, this guy will be added with 5, this guy will be added with 5, this guy will be added with 4, and that's how you get to this particular thing. So now addition is all done. Okay, so you got 13, 16, 19, 22. It never looked closer to 1, 2, 3, 4. So now there is an interesting step. So what we observe here is we are adding everything in all direction. That means there is an overlap which is coming, right? So there is a bias, there is a low frequency which is actually coming up and adding together, and this is very important because we need to remove that low frequency. So how to go about it? Low frequency, so you just, the easier way to go about it is you added these, and this, so you take the average of that and then subtract that out. So here for example 7 plus 3 10, 12 plus 5 is 17, plus 3 is 20, plus 10 is 30, plus 10 is 40. So you have 40 together, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 dimensions, so the direction. So you have sort of each direction average, you're adding 10. So if I subtract that out, mean 10 out of all these directions, I'll get 3, 6, 9, 12. Still we are not close. So what we observe here is a scaling now, because there's a constant factor which can be brought out, which is 3. So if I do that division by 3, I'll get 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the back projection algorithm, and these 2 steps is actually slightly tricky. So this is like you are doing some filtering, right? You are doing some low pass filtering, or you are removing the mean, which is literally meaning you are removing the zero frequency component, right, the DC component from your image. So this is something like a filtering step which is actually happening here. So without that, the image looks like a blurred version, or a what you call noise added version of the original image. Okay, so in fact this, if I add these steps, these 2 steps to the back projection, so this entire step, this is the back projection part, and when we add this filtering, which is like the mean subtraction, it is commonly known as filtered back projection. So I actually introduced the modern day algorithm to you. The old days we used to stop at this. Okay, reason I will show you, I will just show you with an example. Okay, so that it becomes pretty clear to you. So this is one example. So same shape log and phantom, and it's his sinogram. The projection will look like this. So don't forget, so this is the phi direction and this is the S direction. So what we do is actually we start with the first particular thing, and then you project it out, then you take the second angle, you project it out, and then you sum it out, then you third angle, you project it out, and then you sum it out, and so on, right? So that's the thing. So let me actually show you. So when you have a projection of 0, that means only the 0 degree is considered, and then this slice, if I take this slice and then propagate it, that's what you are propagating here. You will see that the center is black, and then these edges, these are actually coming here, and then the center is actually coming here, and then this thing which is actually coming here. So you basically projected that. So this is only with one angle. Now you can see different projections. So if I take 3 projections, that means 3 degrees, and then add them together, you get these. 7 degrees, you get this. So you are almost there, right? 31, you are almost coming to this. Let me actually, okay, so let me actually show you. So you can actually see that as the number of projections are increasing, you're almost coming closer, and let's say at this stage you're almost there, right? but then you can see that DC bias which I was talking about in the previous slide, there is a problem. Okay, so you can see it actually. Okay, so the reconstruction is there at each of this projection, and then finally, but then what about these minor details? Those are missing. Okay, so what is missing? I think you already know. You have a picture of what is the problem. The problem is that mean is not subtracted out, it is remaining there, so we need to have a way to remove that. Okay, so that's a problem. Okay, so similarly I have another example where this is the original image, and then if I do projections like this almost 180 degree, I am able to, but still these two are not similar. There is something missing, and that missing part you are already aware of. What is it? So before going to the details of that algorithm that we does to remove that mean subtraction, I would like to actually point to you an interesting correlation, okay, which is a very well known theorem, which is known as Fourier slice theorem. Okay, so at this point it looks vague to you, but it's actually a very interesting concept. So I'll explain to you what is it. First pictorially. Okay, so let's do it pictorially first. So let's take the Shep-Logan phantom again, and let's treat it as an image. Okay, so let's treat it as an image as it is. F of xy, so xy are the coordinate locations, and f of xy is the intensity at each and every coordinate location xy. So it's an image. So if I take a 2D Fourier transform of this image, so image is a two-dimensional observation, so you can't take a 1D Fourier transform, you need to take 1D in both x and y direction. So if I take a 2D Fourier transform, I hope all the computer science people also are very well aware of Fourier transform by now, but even if you are not, you can ignore it. I just wanted to introduce a concept here. So 2D Fourier transform basically means you do first the Fourier transform in the x direction, and then on top of that you do Fourier transform in the y direction. So that's what exactly you have. You have the pixel, then you have the x direction, then you have the y direction. So that's the Fourier transform. Okay, so if you want to really consider this, let me explain to you so that it becomes pretty clear. Okay, so f of uv are the coordinates, so this is the u direction, let's say, and this is the v direction. So this is given by integral from minus infinity to plus infinity. So first you do basically the v direction, and then you do in the other direction. So let's say f of x comma y e raised to minus j 2 pi x u. Okay, and then you have e raised to minus j 2 pi y v du, sorry, dx dy. So this is what nicely concisely represented here. So first you do in the x direction, then the result on that you do in the y direction. So that's the meaning of it. That's why you need two integrals, because x and y directions you need to do it separately. So if I take the Fourier transform and then image it, which is actually shown here, so just for those who didn't study image processing, so this is your as I said, you need to consider something like, so this is your 0 0 position, this guy at the center. Okay, and as you move, this is like increasing frequency in one direction, this is x direction, and this is increasing frequency in the y direction or the other direction. So that's the literal meaning of it. And then this portion and this portion remain same, and this portion and this portion remain same for because of the symmetricity in the Fourier transform. Let's not go into those details because not very relevant for our discussion today. Now let's take the projection. Okay, so let's say the zero angle projection, if I plot it, it looks like this. Zero angle means basically you do take the projection of s comma phi, and then from that I'll take s comma 0. Okay, 0 degrees. So 0 angle, I take the p of s phi, the plot will look like this. Okay, so literally it means like I'm evaluating at only the I mean the angle is basically 0 and the x is basically same as s, all the x points, let's say. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is this entire thing I'm going to evaluate it. So that's the major what you call takeaway from what I'm saying. And then if I take 1D FFT of this, okay, so I'm going to take a 1D FFT of this signal. It looks like this. Of course I will ignore all these gems, because otherwise they will induce sort of high frequency noise, because there's a sudden transition, right, from the low frequency from 0 to this. I'm ignoring all that. If I take only this particular region and take an FFT out of it, I'll get this. Okay, so what is that? So basically, so this is the expression for the slice, right? I mean, basically I'm going to take a line integral over a particular angle phi. In this case phi is 0, and then of course s is that line. In this case s is equal to x, that horizontal line, of course. So that is the expression. And then when I say Fourier transform of that, basically Fourier transform of this entire expression. So Fourier transform of this particular thing, of course, in the x direction, so that is why this factor comes into picture. And then this is nothing but, if you consider this expression, this is nothing but along v equal to 0, and only one direction I'm talking about, right? That means this slice. So if I take one slice like this, if I plot that, I'll get this. Okay, and you can see that they are same. So basically the takeaway point here is, you take the Fourier transform, the 2D Fourier transform, and then take a slice out of it. That slice is determined by the angle. So in this case phi equal to 0, so that means it is at this point, and that means v equal to 0 and u has some value. U is actually varying across, v is actually 0. Remember the axis, just to give a picture, this is actually v and this is actually u. So v is put as 0, u is varied, so that corresponds to phi equal to 0, right? So if I take that slice, it is as good as I'm taking the projection at phi equal to 0 and taking the Fourier transform of it. So that's very, very interesting. And now I don't know whether you understood where I'm going. Why I slightly took an offshoot and discussing about this here is because there is an important, very, very important fact here. So the fact is this. So let's put that whatever pictorial I represented here in terms of equation here. So these two are same. So I take the projection which is at an angle phi dash. Okay, and s can vary. It can be anything. It can be equal to x. It need not be equal to x. But let's take that. So p of s comma phi dash literally means that out of the sinogram I'm only taking one angle. Okay, one particular angle. And if I take 1D Fourier transform of that, I get a signal. I get a Fourier transform. It's a 1D again. And that is equivalent to, you take the entire 2D Fourier transform of the image and only evaluate at phi equal to phi dash. That means I'm slicing the Fourier transform. The 2D Fourier transform, I slice it at that particular angle. Okay, so since it is phi equal to 0, that what I was showing you in the previous case, so it is like the horizontal slice. If phi is equal to 90 degree, it will be vertical slice. If phi equal to 45 degree, it will be some angle slice, right? So whatever it is, you take the Fourier slice, they are equal. Okay, so that's very, very important. So you project it in an angle. Okay, the Fourier transform of that projection is equivalent to, you take the original 2D Fourier transform of the scene, and then you slice the value of that Fourier transform at that particular angle. They are equivalent. This is really, really important theorem which was well established in mathematics, which is known as Fourier slice theorem. Now we can actually think of the reconstruction process, particularly the filtering process, the mean subtraction process, from that perspective. Okay, so I'll come back to that. Okay, maybe I'm confusing a bit all of you, but it's pretty simple. So what we are essentially saying is, you give me the projection, I take one angle from that projection sinogram, and if I take Fourier transform of that, that is equivalent to, if there was an original scene, original image, and I had a 2D Fourier transform of that image, and if I take one slice in that particular same slice angle given by my sinogram, I would have got similar signal. Okay, so that's very interesting concept, right? I mean, you are having literally Fourier transform of the scene. Okay, so that's very, very important. Okay, so from the Fourier transform of your sinogram, you're literally having some information on the Fourier transform of the scene. That's the major takeaway as an engineer. It's like it's no more like a black box. It seems like there is a forward linear transform which represents the possible scene. Okay, so how to make use of that, it's a critical thing here. Okay, so this is what, again, I think it's the same. So let me explain again through this picture, which is pretty interesting. So you have this scene here, and when I say projection, this is what I have. So at this particular angle, so basically this particular angle, let's say this is phi dash. At this particular angle, this is the projection that I get. If I take Fourier transform of this projection, I end up in getting this. Now if I had the original Fourier transform, this is an unknown factor, this is really not available to me, but if I had this scene available to me, I take Fourier transform of that scene, I get this. And the same slice, so this is the angle, so the same slice, so you see the same slice, if I take and if I plot it, it looks like this. So they are exactly same. So this is a literal meaning. I hope it's pretty clear to you. Okay, so I can get this information. This is the interesting part. So I get this information, and then how to use, that's the key, right? That's the key to the filtered back projection, right? So let's go back, and this is, I mean, this is why I took that off route. Okay, so because I wanted to establish that taking Fourier transform of the final image or final scene has a significance, because the Fourier slice theorem can be used and potentially used to remove the artifacts. Okay, so that's the thing. So if I take Fourier transform of the original scene, it looks like this. The reconstruction, the symbol back projection, where I'm not doing any mean filtering or anything, just back projection and adding up all the angles on all the back projection, I get this. The difference between these two is the strength at the center, the low frequency, which we obviously identified through that example, right? The final thing, actually the final back projection summation has a lot of DC, lot of mean value, which I need to subtract, and mean value is nothing but in an image it is like zero frequency, right? The reason is, okay, let me, I mean, those who didn't study image processing, let me give a quick tip. Whenever you see an image, all edges means sudden change in intensity, right? You have a smooth intensity, then you suddenly see a higher intensity, that means a sudden transition. It look like a high frequency in the Fourier transform. Okay, whenever there is a sudden change in intensity, that will be a high frequency. Whenever there is a lot of smooth variation in the image, that will look like a low frequency. So if you see over here, there is a lot of blurring, lot of smoothness, that is actually affecting and increasing the strength at the low frequency. So if you want to apply now that is the major fact, right? So each slice, each projection, or each vertical line in the sinogram is a slice in the Fourier transform. Now each of those slices, if I put a filter, something like a high pass filter, or a very ideal filter is something like this. So for this particular slice, if I have something like this, that means high frequencies are kept, low frequency is suppressed, and then of course the high frequency. You can have another shape something like this. Okay, this is more ideal, because if we enhance the high frequency, the noise will also increase, right? So that you can have a shape like this also. So you can do, you take the Fourier slices, you apply a filter on those Fourier slices, and then you take inverse Fourier transform of those slices, and then you do back projection. So inverse Fourier transform slices will always go back to the projection domain again. Then you do that back projection, you get back a cleaner image. So that is a concept I thought of explaining to you. Okay, so that's the key factor. Now let me derive it. If you are not understanding this, you can ignore it, because the concept is already known to you. So what you need to do is, you go to the Fourier transform of the slices. So P of S comma phi is what you have. You take a phi equal to phi dash, you take Fourier transform of that, then you do apply the low pass, the high pass filter. That means the low frequencies are removed. Then you take inverse Fourier transform, come back to the projection domain, which will be like a filtered projection. Then you do sort of back projection, the typical back projection. You end up in getting a very clean image. So that's the idea. So this is we starting off with this concept. So let me explain to you for those who want to follow it. Otherwise you can skip this. If you're not interested in max, you can completely skip this, because the intuition is already available to you. So f of xy is 2D inverse Fourier transform of 2D transform, right? So this is quite straightforward. You take the Fourier transform, 2D Fourier transform of your f of xy, which is this. If I take inverse of that, you get back to this, right? So as simple as that. Now expression, I just put it in terms of expression here. So this is basically your 2D Fourier transform, and then remaining is basically your inverse 2D Fourier transform. Okay, du dv is your inverse Fourier transform, and you can also see the sign change. This is not minus, this is plus, because that is an inverse Fourier transform. So basically whatever I expanded is f2 inverse. Okay, so 2D Fourier transform inverse. Okay, and now in the slice theorem we need to take in the polar coordinate, right? Because angle is the deciding factor, right? You take at different phi. So for that you need to put it in terms of representing the 2D Fourier transform in terms of the polar coordinates, where u is actually omega cos phi. Phi is the angle of interest to us, and omega is the frequency. So omega cos phi is the u direction. So let me again plot the thing. So u is this direction, v is this direction. So this will be omega cos phi, and this will be omega sin phi, and when phi equal to 0 we know that this will vanish, that will become 0, and cos phi will become 1, and you only have this slice. That's what we were showing you in the previous slides. And then I'm not going to the derivation part of it. Then you can prove that du dv for the slices at a particular angle can be given by omega d phi. Okay, just believe me, it's correct. Okay, you can derive it if you're keen, you can derive it. Okay, now putting this into the equation f of xy, the red is what highlighted, which is the change from the previous expression. So now it is no more in du and dv, it will be in d phi and d omega, and d phi we know that it goes from 0 to 2 pi, but again we have the intuition that we need not do integration over entire 0 to 2 pi, because whatever is there in 0 to pi will get repeated in pi to 2 pi, right? That's why we even in projection we only take from 0 to pi. We rarely take pi to 2 pi because it's a repetition. Okay, we'll come to that, but let's assume the entire 360 degrees, so 0 to 2 pi. So phi is varied in that. So I have different slices going from 0, that is the horizontal line, then goes to the vertical line which is 90 degree, then goes to the other direction which is 180 degree, then again go to 270 and come back to 360, which is again 0, right? So phi is varied different angles. That's like Fourier slices I'm going to take. Okay, and then omega is the frequency values, of course. D omega is that resolution that I have, and here major change, it becomes for each phi it is 1D slice, right? So 1D slice, omega cos phi, omega sin phi. Again if I put phi equal to 0, this term becomes 0 and this term becomes omega. So that's what exactly I was talking about, that horizontal slice, right? Okay, so that's done. And then e raised to my j 2 pi omega, if I substitute for the u value, v value, it becomes x cos phi, y sin phi. And major thing that you need to see over here is this is actually nothing but s. Okay, x cos phi plus y sin phi is nothing but that s, the projection, right? That s, that single value of s. Okay, so simplifying it further, you get something like this particular thing, f1 omega phi sin omega sin phi, it is nothing but p of omega. P of omega, don't forget that it is p of s comma phi, and phi at phi equal to phi dash, right? So the Fourier transform of this is what I mean by p of omega here, and that's what exactly this particular thing is giving you, right? The 1D Fourier transform of your slice, that is exactly equivalent to the Fourier transform of your projection. The previous slide has all the details. So that's what exactly this. So this guy will go to this one, and then of course this is simplified from here, that remains same. And then one more thing I did is actually instead of 0 to 2 pi we just go to 0 to pi, and then in that case there is no negative frequency, it will become absolute of omega, and then that is the beauty. So here by doing this operation, what exactly, if I plot this omega, right, what is going to happen is the omega will look like sort of the absolute of omega over omega. If I look like, it will be looking like this. Okay, so that's the, because you are actually sort of what you call taking absolute of the frequency, right? So the frequency will become positive. So that's the meaning of it. So I'll come back to that in a moment. So this is the expression, the final expression. So d omega stands there, omega becomes absolute because you're only treating it 0 to pi, so pi to 2 pi will sort of wrap it, so it becomes absolute. Then p of omega is nothing but from the Fourier slice theorem, okay, that explained in the previous case. So the slice is equivalent to taking the Fourier transform of the projection. That's what I'm meaning here. And then of course this particular thing is nothing but inverse Fourier transform, which is actually, you can easily find it out. So p of omega is the Fourier transform of p of s comma phi, and when you do this you get sort of inverse Fourier transform with a small addition, which is actually omega here. Okay, that's the only small addition there. I think that is missing here. Let me actually put that. So this omega, which is actually inherently inside there. Okay, so this is the final thing. I think this is pretty straightforward if you understand that concept intuitively. The f of xy, let me actually try to explain it. F of xy is the original image, and it is actually nothing but if I take different slices of the projection matrix, that means phi is varying from, so in this case phi actually goes from 0 to pi. So let's say phi equal to 0, that means I am going to take the first thing from the xynogram, that is exactly this, and if I sum it out for all these things, I get the original image. So this is very well known to you. This is the normal back projection. There is nothing magic here, but there is something which is hidden here, is this particular thing. We are actually taking the Fourier transform of that slice, that is exactly this, and then I'm going to multiply by something which is actually looking like, if I plot against omega, so this is omega and then this is absolute of omega, it looks like this. So that means the low frequency, this is 0, right? So that is suppressed, and high frequencies are preserved as it is. So this is the filtering that is inherently available inside this algorithm, and that is why we call it as filtered back projection algorithm. So literally, let me put it this way. I think let's avoid all the confusion, lot of explanation, lot of max. The thing happening is, you take the cyanogram, that is what you have, the observation matrix, the sensor observation matrix is what you have. You take each and every slice, okay, that is why you are varying phi from 0 to pi. Each slice you take the Fourier transform, and that Fourier transform is multiplied by omega, that's a filter, and then you take inverse Fourier transform of that and do the back projection. So that's the meaning of it. So I have the steps here. So basically I think explained nicely here. So you take Fourier transform of projection p of s comma phi for a given phi, that's what meaning of that. Then you multiply by frequency filter omega, that is the low pass filter that we are doing, the mean subtraction, the exact equivalent of that is this. Okay, and this is why, I mean, why it is so important is like, it need not be a one particular shape. You can play with this shape, this step you can play with. Then you take inverse Fourier transform of this product, right? That again you are back in the projection domain, and now you do the simple back projection, normal back projection, then sum over all the back projection, just like what you do. That's it. So this is the meaning of it. So this is the projection matrix. So one slice, let's say phi equal to 0, then you take Fourier transform, you get this, then you multiply by this particular factor. So this is like filter, that means the low frequencies are attenuated, high frequencies are untouched. Then you take inverse Fourier transform of this product, you end up in getting this. So the difference between these two is, this is unfiltered, this is filtered. So this is basically filtered and this is unfiltered, and then you do this for all the alpha, I mean all the phi, and then you back project. So for example, if I back project this, this looks like this. You can see the edges are enhanced because you are doing sort of a high pass filtering, right? And this filter, this particular filter was devised by RAM, it is commonly known as RAM-LAC, in memory of those who developed this algorithm. And you can have different shape. This shape can be something like this, as I was telling you. So here the extremely high frequencies are also suppressed, only some, it's like a band pass filter, you could say. Okay, so that is the literal meaning of it. So just to again reiterate it, the importance of this algorithm is, instead of doing a simple mean filtering or anything similar to that, what we do is, we take the Fourier transform of each and every angles from the measured projection or the sinogram matrix. You take multiply that with a filter, you take the inverse Fourier transform, and then you back project each and every angle and then sum them up, you get a better result. Okay, so that's filtered back projection. So this is the step. So you have the original sinogram, and through that Fourier transform step and through the RAM filter you get a filtered sinogram. Okay, so there is a hidden step here. Let me actually put it here. For each angle, each phi, that means you are moving in this direction, this is a phi. Okay, you take Fourier transform, then you put the RAM filter, you take IFT, then you stitch them together, you get this, right? So there is a filter. So there is an algorithm which is actually happening here. You get a filtered sinogram, and then from the filtered sinogram you do the normal back projection. So 1 angle, 2 angle, 10 angle, 30 angle, 50 angle, 80 angle, and finally you get this. So that you can see almost they are same. It's not bad as the normal back projection algorithm that we were talking about. It's a very good image that we are getting. So I have, in fact, the comparison is here. So this is the normal back projection, this is the filtered back projection, and you can see the difference. Okay, so very simple RAM filter, and you can already see the difference. So what is that? What is the takeaway that you're going to get from here? That's very important, right? I think maybe I'm complicating things a bit, but I thought I should convey all the aspects to it. So the thing is, like, back projection will work. What is back projection? You take an angle from the sinogram, you project it out, and then you take the next angle, you project it out. You take the next angle and cover all the angles, you project them out, and all these images you add them together, you get the final image. But the problem is, by doing that addition, there is a lot of overlap, there is a lot of redundancy, and that is actually creating a lot of what you call blurring in your data. So you know that the blurring is like low frequency in Fourier transform. So you can put a filter in Fourier transform and then actually extract that out. But I am not going to do that. What I am going to do, that I came to know that if I take the projection and I take the Fourier transform of that projection, it is equivalent to the original 2D Fourier transform of the image and a slice in that image at the same angle. Same angle, if I slice through in the 2D Fourier transform of the image, I get the same result. So then that is the beauty, right? Then what we need to do is, you take the, then I understood that if I follow that principle, all I need to do is take the Fourier transform of your projection, you apply the RAM filter, then take inverse Fourier transform of that projection and do that for all the angles, and then you do the typical back projection, you get a much better image, and that is known as filtered back projection. I think this is FPB, not FBP, so that's a small change there. Sorry for that. Okay, so that's it. I play it again. You can see it very clearly from here. So you studied one of the most popular, most widely used reconstruction algorithm in the tomography. I hope I'm not confusing. Just to reiterate, so in the case of tomographic or transmission imaging, what you have actually is projections, the forward projections, and from the forward projections, which we typically call as sinograms, the reason is very simple, because you're taking at different angles, and if you view the slice through across the angle, it looks like a sine or cosine waveform. That's why the name it is sinogram. So from the sinogram or forward projections, you need to back project so that you get the original image back, right? And the back projection, direct back projection, will not help us because there is a lot of overlap and that creates a lot of blurring. So what we need to do is, we need to do a high pass filter, and we will not do that high pass filter on the time domain or the space domain. We will go to the Fourier domain, because we realize that there is this Fourier slice theorem which says that I take any angle, any slice, I have that slice in the Fourier transform. So what I do is, from the projection matrix, angle by angle, I take the Fourier transform, apply the filter, take the inverse Fourier transform, group them together again, and then do the back projection. That is known as filtered back projection. I get a much better image. Okay, so that's it. You covered everything. Now a last minute something which is very interesting. Why I want to introduce that concept is because this was a well-known concept earlier in Max, and this could help us in actually accelerating some of these algorithms. You don't need to code anything, because there is this concept known as Redon transform, and you could actually see that forward projection that we are talking about so far, the creation of sinograms through the detectors, the X-ray CT detectors, it is actually Redon transform of the scene. Okay, the expression for Redon transform, which was well known. Okay, there's nothing to relate to uh, the concepts that we have been discussing so far. Redon transform exists as an entity, so it is something which is very interesting. So Redon transform of an image, let's say f of xy, or rather any matrix, let's say f of xy, it is given by this. So p of s comma phi, for consistency I am using the same projection p. So p of s comma phi, you already know what is this meaning. Phi is the angle that I am going to take. So phi can vary from, let's say, 0 to 180 degree, and then s is the extent of scan, the radius, you could say. Okay, the radius that you are interested in, x cos phi and y sin phi, that's the radius that you are interested in, the projection thing. Those lines, those represents the lines that I'm interested in. So what this essentially says is, you take the image f of xy and you have a delta function which exists only at x cos phi, y sin phi locations. Okay, everywhere else that is 0. So that is the meaning. So it will be like a line which is slicing through the image. You sum up the intensity through there, I'll get p of s phi. So you vary the, so basically literally this means is like something like, oh sorry, something like this. I'm sorry for a slightly extended session now. I just want to complete this so that we don't need another lecture for this. Okay, so let's say this is the image, and you choose a particular phi. So it means that all the points are 0, only at certain points, let's say at that angle, this delta function exists. So it is as good as you multiply the image by only these points, right? All others are 0, only these are 1s. So that means as good as these intensities, and then you sum it up for all pixels, you get that. So it is like slicing through these locations, and then for another s this will be the case, another s this will be the case. So you effectively get these observations. That is like the projection that we are talking about, right? And this is commonly known in mathematics as Redon transform. Okay, so Redon transform is a very beautiful transform where your image is actually sort of summed up through an angle, and that intensity is put. So for each angle you get a for an each angle, and for each s you get a line, sorry, you get a point which is like an angle, inclined angle. You sum the intensity at that angle and through that line. So that's the meaning of it. So if you see inverse, I mean Redon transform at different angles for such an image, if I rotate the image instead of rotating the senses, so this is exactly same, and this particular region is what the Redon transform shows you. And you can see that as the view is changed, the result is changing, right? The p of s comma phi is changing. That's what the sinogram, you can see the sine wave propagation very beautifully here. That's why it is known as sinogram. And then of course the inverse Redon transform is also existing. So this is inverse Redon transform, and you can easily see that this is nothing but our back projection. You take each and every slice, you sum it through that particular slice, or you sort of expand for that slice like an image, and then you sum all the images together, you get the final image out. Okay, so that's the meaning. This is not filtered back projection, this is normal. So Redon transform is what you have as sinograms, and all you need to take is inverse Redon transform. For back projection we do have inverse Redon transform, so you don't need to go through that algebraic reconstruction technique that I was talking about all the way. We were explaining it using that table. You can just use inverse Redon transform. So that is why I was telling you, I will keep you informed how to simulate this data. So in the MATLAB, for example, you have this symbol command which is actually fandom. If you use fandom, that will create the ship log and fandom for you, and then you can use Redon transform to create the sinograms. Those are the observations that you have in the CT, and then you can use the iRedon transform to actually come up with this back projection. In the iRedon there are two options. One is the linear option. Okay, let me show you. Okay, it's a slightly extended lecture, I'm sorry for that, but let me actually show you here. Okay, so what I'm talking about is P, let's say fandom of 128. That means you will create this particular thing. So this is the fandom, the Shep-Logan fandom that we are talking about, right? Now let me actually use this Redon transform. So R is equal to, so R is Redon, and then you give this input phantom, and then you are going to evaluate at 180 angles. Okay, so that's the meaning of it. Now let me show you the Redon transform, which is nothing but the sinogram. So you can see over here, this is the sinogram, right? So the image and the corresponding sinogram. So this is what you observe in CT or X-ray, which is your projection matrix. Now let's actually reconstruct it back. So that for that you have these I-Redon transform. So let me actually show you two parts. So let's say P reconstruction linear. Okay, so let me put this way. So this will be I-Redon. So let me just I forgot the command, so let me actually use this. So these are the things. The linear, if I use, it will give you the full thing. So let's say P1, let's call it as linear. This means no filtering here, just pure back projection. Okay, so that's P1. And then P2, let's remove this linear so that it does the back project, filtered back projection. That means there is a RAM filter, and I think if you have the flexibility to give your choice of filter also here. So now let me actually use subplots to plot everything. So this is our original image. I think I need to scale it so that it looks better. Okay, so that's your original image. This is now let's actually give to the second one, and then this to be the third one. So I'll show you this. Okay, so this is the original image, this is simple back projection, and then this is actually the filtered back projection. So you can play with this tool. It's just few lines of command and you can see how things happen. Okay, so that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and of course the major contents are over for us. Okay, so now there will be some optional lectures that I am going to put, which is going to help you understand some of these full imaging pipelines. So this can be done in the next week. Okay, so this week I'll stop with these two lectures, and there will be another interesting lecture where you can use a MATLAB toolbox to mimic your sensor array arrangement and all, which will be the optional lecture again. But with this I think we sort of completed the entire course in an official way, and we will discuss more about it in the next live session. Okay, so thank you for joining this course, thank you for listening to the lectures, and I hope you enjoyed each and every lecture. Thank you.